Thank you very much for coming down today. I remain hopeful that a federal court will recognize this extreme racial gerrymander and will throw out the Trump plan. I have been very fortunate to represent the only town I've ever called home for a number of years, and I hope I'll be able to continue to file for re-election as I'd already planned to do in Congressional District 37. However, if the court does not agree that this is a racial gerrymander and we have new districts, I have first said that I think it's very important for Congressman Kassar to defend Congressional District 35, which is his district. Most of his district is today under the existing plan outside of Austin, which he's represented a corner of for the last 2.5 years. I believe it's very important not to surrender that district to Donald Trump and his enablers. It is especially true because it's a winnable district. It's 57% Hispanic, more Hispanic than the district he has now. And we can look at the performance of President Biden and senatorial candidates to show that this is a district that with enough hard work we can prevail in. That's important because what is at stake is the future of our country and whether Trump has one-man rule. If he gets 5 new seats out of Texas and replaces 5 Democrats, that one-man rule is on the way. It appears that Congressman Kassar has decided he would rather challenge me than challenge Trump. And so I was faced with the decision as to whether it's really in the interest of our fight against Trump tyranny to step aside instead of fighting other Democrats. I made that decision. I stick by it. I wish him the best if that's the way it turns out. But I think what we need is a united effort at a time our country is in great peril from Trump tyranny to stand together, to push back, and to try to claim as many of these 5 seats when they are approved later today as possible. With that, I invite any of your questions.
Congressman, are you saying that if the courts uphold the maps, then you will not run?
That's correct. If the only choice is to have myself and Congressman Kassar competing in the district I represent today, which under the Trump maps has more than 2/3 of the people I represent and only a fraction of those he represents, I will still stand aside because I think it's more important to fight Trump tyranny than to fight one another.
Congressman, is there a specific reason you would not consider just kind of moving into another district and running?
Yes. Austin's the only town I've ever called home. And the idea that I would be the one that would leave Austin and run in a 57% Hispanic district is not one that's going to achieve what we want relative to Trump. I know it's hard to move. I have been through this before when I opened an office in McAllen, when I opened an office in San Antonio. But Austin's my home, and we probably need most effectively to win that district an able, forceful Hispanic voice to appeal to disaffected Hispanics and disaffected people of all types. I wish that would be Congressman Kassar. I think he's best positioned as the only incumbent in that district, even though he only has a fraction of it, but he's chosen to do otherwise.
Congressman, would you consider running for statewide office?
Not really. I've done that once long ago. It's the only time I've ever been defeated was in a statewide race for the United States Senate. I'm blessed to have had this opportunity for so many decades to represent Austin, and whatever the outcome, if the courts do not give me the opportunity to run for re-election in this district, I'll remain involved here in Austin as I always have been.
Congressman, Wendy Davis's op-ed encouraged you to make way for Congressman Kassar. Did that have anything to do with your decision, and what are some of the feedback that you've gotten from your peers?
Exactly. It did in one sense. Of course, Wendy has never been an active supporter of mine, and some of the other people that signed on to that Chronicle article have not been involved in my campaign in years. It's not what they said, which was really strange, that instead of Congressman Kassar defending his district, maybe I ought to go defend it and leave mine. I didn't think that made any sense. But what did affect me from that is that beginning at 4 a.m. in the morning, a Twitter storm started and social media battle on Democratic chat groups. And it was just indicative of the fact that we're going to have a slugfest here if we have 2 Democratic members of Congress running against one another. That is not in our interest at a time our country is in such peril and when we need everyone united against Trump autocracy. And so that's why I decided to step aside, not because of what was written, but the reaction to it as an indication of what would lie ahead in a 6-month slugfest.
On the flip side of that, what's it, the support that you've got even from Congressman Kazar, what has it meant to see your peers kind of step up and support you?
Well, it's certainly encouraging, the many comments that I received. A large number of people ready to endorse me publicly in a race if I face Congressman Kazar, including a number of local elected officials. But again, I think you have to put aside personal concerns and recognize what's at stake here. And so I appreciate the comments before my announcement and after my election, after my announcement, but it's about how we unite against Trump.
Congressman, if redistricting is really setting a bad example here in Central Texas with what's going on, why should Democrats embrace that strategy in blue states?
Well, I think it would be better, and have voted to do this, if we had citizen nonpartisan commissions in every state in the country. Republicans blocked that effort when we offered it in Congress. We cannot have a checkerboard system where injustice prevails in a state dominated by Republicans like Texas, and fairness exists in Democratic states. The only pushback we have against Trump taking 5 Democratic seats and trying to turn them into Republicans is a response from a state like California. They can perhaps check Texas 5 for 5, but we do not have states to do that to counter Missouri, Ohio, Indiana, Florida. Trump will have the advantage if we surrender all 5 of those seats to him in Texas. Yes, he drew them to elect Republicans, but now is the time for Democrats to fight him and to fight back. And I think that in at least the Kazar district, we have a chance to win, perhaps in 1 or 2 of the others. And so the next step, if the courts uphold these sorry maps, is for us to fight in those districts to defend them and to try to prevent him from getting all 5 seats.
What conversations have you had with Congressman Kazar in the past 24 hours, if any?
I think the last contact we had was brief at the Capitol in the Rotunda. Both of us united in opposing these plans and in earlier rallies, but we've not talked since I made my announcement.
Congressman, you've been a progressive champion for decades. How does it feel to be, in a sense, being asked to make way for a younger progressive as opposed to your states? My feeling is we need all generations participating. And while we failed to attract many young people in last year's campaign for the presidency, we also lost older people. If we don't take those who perform not based on age but based on ability and unite all of them, if we impose ageism just as sexism and racism has been opposed in the race, we lose out. We lose talent from all generations. Some have pointed to my statement about President Biden. I think that is a strength. I was willing to step out and say to the president of my own party that you do not have the performance, you do not have the electability to be successful. Some other people were more concerned about their careers and were unwilling to join me. And so it took 3 weeks from my call until we actually got President Biden to step aside. I wish that had happened earlier. It is, I would say, ironic that some would question my age in this when I know Congressman Kazar has been going around the country with a fellow who's 5 or 6 years older than me named Bernie Sanders, and no one has called for him to step aside.
Congressman, yesterday Trump announced that he's going to run for state attorney general, so now his seat becomes available. What is your perceived notion about how Democrats can maybe perform for that district?
Well, first, I have to say that as much as I disagree with Chip Roy, I respect it. He has been willing to stand up at times against President Trump and people in his own party. I share his concern about our growing budget deficit. I'm a pay-as-you-go progressive, not one who wants to just spend for everything that I want. As to his seat, it was already gerrymandered to almost guarantee a Republican. Now even more gerrymandered. So I think it's a very difficult seat for a Democrat to compete in. They drew all these districts, every one, including Greg's, to elect a Republican. It takes careful analysis to allocate resources to those where Trump's high watermark of 10% doesn't really mean that a Democrat will be blocked. In Chip's seat, it's pretty tough.
Congressman, state lawmakers just passed camp safety legislation in response to the deadly floods back in July. Is there anything on the federal level that maybe you think needs to
Absolutely.
have attention?
You know, within a very short period of time after I attended the prayer service for one of these little 8-year-old girls that was drowned, I began exploring with the National Weather Service how they handled this. I met with FEMA to talk about how they handled it. I believe these deaths should never have occurred. There was failure at every level. Gross negligence in Kerr County, failure to respond in advance from the state of Texas. They're doing this after the fact. And I believe that the cuts that were made at the National Weather Service and at FEMA seriously impaired the federal response. I have been trying now for over a month to get the National Weather Service to produce for me the tapes of who they were contacting and whether they were only contacting the guy that was asleep or were broadcasting a broad warning in Kerr County. They have declined to provide timely access to tapes that the director of the National Weather Service told me one-on-one were available. And I'm going to stay after them on that and their logs of contacts. I think they had a tendency, after losing a key member of the National Weather Service who was the meteorologist responsible for contacting local folks, that he wasn't there that night, nor was a hydrologist to follow the water that evening available in the local office, that they are not producing the logs because they don't want the public to see them. We need that information. We need to know whether the cutbacks that Trump and Doge made to the National Weather Service and to NOAA contributed to these deaths. And I want that information. I think the public deserves it, and I'm going to continue pressing for it.
On a national issue, sir.
Yes, sir.
What do you think about the FBI raiding the former National Security Advisor's home?
Other than recognizing the danger that Vladimir Putin poses not only to Ukraine but to the world, there are very few things I've ever agreed with John Bolton on. He is a far-right kind of war-promoting person that I've been on the opposite side of throughout my career. But what happened today with this invasion, because he pointed out how Putin is manipulating Trump, expresses the very kind of danger that has encouraged me to make the decision I have about redistricting. Our country is at peril when one-man rule begins to intimidate anyone that questions him, whether from the right or the not-so-right. And so I'm very troubled by the invasion of Bolton's home and by Trump's earlier decision to remove security from him when they knew that he was under threat from Iranian agents for death. This is a day in American history that shows one more step that Trump is taking toward authoritarianism. We will not get tyranny, authoritarianism, full-born at one time. It happens step by step. And the step Trump is taking through redistricting is one way to maintain his power, and the intimidation of anyone who questions him is another. It's a very troubling development.
Where do you go from now, Congressman? What's the next step?
Well, I have a number of meetings to initiate in that some of which I've delayed because of all the work over redistricting. Now that that plan is about to be adopted, there's one community group after another. If I'm not successful with the court case, I still have a minimum of 16 months to represent this community. Our office is working every day on concerns that our neighbors have, on community concerns. And tomorrow I'll be at the celebration of Ukrainian Independence Day at the state capitol. Next week, speaking to the University Democrats, to a number of other organizations. I plan to remain actively involved in my time in Congress. And if I don't have an opportunity to continue in re-election, to be involved in other ways here in the only town I've ever called home. Thank you all very much for coming out and for your questions. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.